Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and I have a very pointless Adobe character creator intro because I thought it would be quite funny. Oh yeah. Anyway, the real point in this video is to talk about CP items and the 8 different tier 3 CP items they are, what they do, the uses behind them, and who they're good for and when you should build them. You know, all the good stuff that you want to know about those tier 3 CP items. Now, we will be doing weapon power items and captain items in this guide later on. It's a 3-part series, but for now, we are just focusing on CP items. So you can do this. Anyway, hopefully that was as funny to you as it was to me when I was making it. It definitely wasn't funny, I'm sorry. Anyway, the 8 CP items that I want to cover are Eve of Harvest, Alternating Current, Broken Myth, Frostburn, Clockwork, Aftershock, Shatterglass, and Echo. And I'm going to look at them in detail and talk to you about why they are good, who they are good for, and in what situations you should consider buying them. Hopefully I'll go through the theory enough so that you can make your own decisions about dynamic item builds. And this is kind of what this guide series is based around. It's called Dynamic Item Builds, so that you guys understand what items are supposed to do, and you can make your own decisions about when to buy them. My guides aren't supposed to tell you what to do. They are supposed to inform you so that you know how to make the decisions for yourself, so that you can become a better player and you can make your own decisions with that. Hopefully I do achieve that in some of my hero guides, and I'm trying to achieve that here with these item guides as well. So the first item I'm going to talk about is Aftershock. Now, this is an item that is very popular among many people as an item build, but I want to explain why and where you should build it. So, without further ado, let's look at Aftershock's stats and its build path. Now, it builds out of Eclipse Prism and Chronograph, and it gives you 25% cooldown speed, 2.5% energy recharge, and 35 crystal power. Now, this is exactly the stats that Eclipse Prism and Chronograph provide you. So both of those two things give you exactly those stats. The important part is that Aftershock then gives you a unique passive, and that unique passive is what makes Aftershock a good item on certain heroes. Now, every time you use an ability, you can deal 15% of the target's max health as crystal damage. You get 50% of that damage back as lifesteal, and this has an internal cooldown of 1.5 seconds. So you can't spam abilities and get an Aftershock prac. You have to kind of space it out. So you have to use an ability every 1.5 seconds, and after you use it every 1.5 seconds, your next basic attack will give you that passive of the Aftershock. Now, as you might be able to tell, it's good versus high health targets because of that max health damage coming out from it. This is something that's more interesting about it. It's good with durable heroes that have low cooldown abilities. So if you can survive in a team fight and consistently get abilities off, like Alpha's Core Charge, then you're going to be able to get lots and lots of procs of Aftershock off, which makes it a good item for Alpha. It's also good with heroes that have low cooldown abilities but a high mobility, so Koshka and Taka, while they may not be as durable as the things like Alpha or Grumpjaw, they are quite hard to lock down because of their movement speed or Taka's stealth, so you can get lots of procs off that using Twirly Death or using Chitin, and it kind of functions the same as Alpha and Grumpjaw. Because you're so hard to lock down and so hard to kill, you get lots of procs of Aftershock off, and that's what makes it good on these heroes. It's also good on heroes that land basic attacks as part of their abilities, because then you all get it, the Aftershock proc in one swift movement. Things like Alpha's Core Charge or Kestel's Glimmer Shot, both of which will proc Aftershock as part of the ability because they count as basic attacks. It's also good with heroes that benefit from early game spikes, because the total cost of Aftershock is only 2,400, so you can get it very easily and very early, earlier than you can get other items like Shatterglass, and you can use it to apply pressure to carries easily as well. Things like Koshka, Taka, Fortress, and Ozo all love having a very early Aftershock because it gives them a massive item spike that you can abuse by pressuring enemy heroes early on. It's also worth noting that Aftershock is not good with heroes that rely on scaling for their abilities. You only get 35 crystal power from Aftershock, so you need to use it on heroes that have got high base damage or just have damage built into their kit. It's no good buying this on something like a Scarf or Celeste because you just don't get enough CP from it. Even if you think you could land the basic attacks and get the 15% damage off, you just get way less CP than building something like a Shatterglass or a Frostburn would give you, and it's just not good in that sense. You need to have this on carries that don't rely on high CP scaling. It's really, really bad on carries that rely on CP scaling to be good. Like I said, Sky, Celeste, Scarf, anything like that, this is a bad item on. So, as we've gone through, this is really good on heroes that have ability-based damage and have good mobility and have good burst damage built into their kit. So Koshka, Taka, Fortress, Alpha. You can even add it to things like Grumpjaw, Ozo, and obviously Kestrel, like we talked about. Again, it doesn't stop here, guys. I've seen people play Lance with Aftershock. It's all about testing the hero, but if the hero is ability-based, they land basic attacks, have good mobility and good gap closing, and their ability to pressure carries is strong, Aftershock is usually a good early item that you can use to snowball the game in your advantage. The next item that I'd like to talk about is Frostburn. Now, this item is a situational CP item that is used on many CP carries, and I'm going to talk to you about those situations and when and where to build it coming up soon. Now, it gives you 100 crystal power, it builds out of Heavy Prism and Eclipse Prism, and its passive is that it slows enemy heroes every time you deal CP damage to them. There is a 0.5 second window because it can only slow them once every 2 seconds, and the slow only lasts for 1.5 seconds, and the slow starts at 10% and goes up to 35% based on the amount of CP you have. So the more CP you build, the stronger the slow becomes, hence it becomes quite good in the late game. Now, it's good with long-range CP heroes who are able to kite easily. I'm talking about the likes of Scarf, Celeste, and Sky. If you're trying to kite against a threat that isn't able to instantaneously gap close, this is a really good item to have. So it's not that good against things like Koshka and Taka, because they can just jump on you anyway. But it's pretty good against other heroes like Glaive, Cruel, who have to kind of run at you to make it happen. It's really good with also CP heroes that might want to slow down a target that they want to blow up. Things like Petal, Celeste, Scarf, trying to chase a target. Frostburn's really good. Remember, Petal's Munions deal crystal damage, so her Munions will slow with Frostburn. So when would you build Frostburn? And that's quite a good question because it's built into quite a few different heroes. For instance, you can build it against this list that I've written here. Catherine, Rona, Finn, Glaive, Lance, Idris, Fortress, Grumpjaw, Jewel, and Cruel. Now, you'd build it into these particular targets because once they've used their gap closing ability, or they don't really have an instant gap closing ability, it's very difficult for them to actually keep up with you. And if you can slow them down, they might find it really, really tough to actually be able to apply damage to you. I'll give you an example. If I'm playing CP Sky and the enemy has a Captain Catherine, if I use my forward barrage on her and I hit it and I have a Frostburn, there is no way that she lands her Merciless Pursuit stun on me. If I'm able to use my Frostburn forward barrage when she's trying to run at me with her stun, there is no way that she gets to me, and I can kite back really easily. So that's an example as to where Frostburn is good. As for heroes that I would build this item on, again, I've talked about them a little bit previously, but Petal, Samuel, Kestrel, Celeste, Scarf, Sky, again, not limited to these heroes, but they are heroes that do well with this item. Now, I don't always build a Frostburn, but I do like it on things like Sky and Scarf quite a lot because the more you slow them, the more damage you can deal to them. But realistically, if you're going up against someone that threatens you, especially a melee threat, it really has to be a melee threat. But if you're going up against a melee threat that threatens you as a CP carry, having a Frostburn can make them almost useless against you. So if I'm going as a Sky, like I said, going up against a Catherine, I'll definitely have a Frostburn. If I'm going up against a Cruel, I'll definitely have a Frostburn. In a lot of situations, I often end up building Frostburn on Sky first anyway, because I think it's just a really good item on her. But it's very situational, and you'll eventually get to grips with when and where you should be looking to build a Frostburn. So I'm going to talk about Shatterglass finally. This will be the last item in this video. I will cover the rest of the CP items in another video. The reason being that I've spent a long time talking about each item and I don't want you sitting here for half an hour. So let's get on to my final item of this particular video and talk about Shatterglass. Now, it's very simple. It builds out of a Heavy Prism and an Eclipse Prism, and it gives you 150 crystal power. The most crystal power a single item can give you in the game. And therefore, it has a very simple purpose and can be built for very simple reasons. But you might think that we've got to go into a bit more detail just so you understand exactly why. It's very good for scaling heroes. So if you want to get a lot of scaling early on and you need to accelerate your damage having high CP, it's really good for these types of heroes. Celeste, Scarf, Sky, CP Ringo, CP Kestrel. It's a really good first item for these guys if you need the damage to put out. You get more damage for your money as well. High impact item for one slot, but it doesn't give you any fancy effects. And because of that, it kind of relies on you to land your skill shots. For instance, you have to get a full forward barrage off, or you have to hit your heliogenesis. Otherwise, you don't really get much out of it. If you land a little bit, having got a Frostburn, at least you're going to get the slow for 1.5 seconds. With Shatterglass, it's all or nothing. So you need to hit the abilities that scale from this, otherwise there's literally no point in buying it. Now, there are other situations that you can build a Shatterglass in as well. For instance, you can build it against assassins because it's better than most other CP damage items into assassins, because the one thing that you can do as a CP mage or CP hero into an assassin that has an instant gap closer like Taka or Koshka is try and burst them before they can burst you. There's no point having a Frostburn really, there's no point having a Broken Myth because you'll never build the stacks. Eve of Harvest as a first item probably won't do enough damage to regenerate you health. So by having a Shatterglass, you pose the threat that you can deal as much, if not more damage to them than they can deal to you. On the flip side, it's also good as assassins into squishy targets. So we talked about the use of Aftershock on targets like Koshka and Taka, but it's also good with Koshka and Taka if you're going directly into things like Ringo and Celeste that you just want to absolutely blow up. Because, you know, Aftershock's great against a variety of targets, especially high health targets, but Shatterglass is even better when you have high ability damage that you just want to blow one target up before anything else. And there we have it, the first 3 items that I'm covering in my CP item guide. I'm going to go over another 3 in my next video, maybe even 4 or 5 if I have the time. I spent a lot of time on each individual item in this video. It might be the same in the next video, so I might split the CP items across 3. I'll probably do the same with the weapon power items, and I'll aim to cover captain items in just one video. It's going to be a video series that's going along my hero guides for the next few weeks. I hope you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and mention below what you'd like to see coming from me in the next few weeks. I know you want a Tucker guide, I know you want a Vox guide, I will do them. They are coming, don't worry.